Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about the evidence in a minute. The key thing here is that you try and expose kids to movement patterns as early as you can. So I'm not saying you get them to play football or tennis or, I mean, you probably all heard the example. Tiger Woods. It was probably he's probably the most successful golf player ever. There's rumours that his father used to take him to the golf club when he was 3, and he would just hit balls. So he was just getting that movement, that swing. There's another Andre Agassi, a famous tennis player, Wimbledon champion, American champion. His father Agassi used to come home from school. His father, they built in Las Vegas where they lived, they built a tennis court in the garden. And every day he came home from school, his father would say, right, get changed, out on the court for 3 or 4 hours. And his father was an engineer, and he built one of those machines that fires the balls down. So for 3 or 4 hours every night, Agassi would just have to hit the balls. And he got to the stage when he was, I think it was like 15, 16, that he just fell out of love with the game. And it's probably a little bit before your time, Agassi, but I think it was late 80s, early 90s that he was at his peak. But because he had been pushed so hard by his father as a youngster, he just rebelled against tennis. He used to wear the earring. Tennis in the late 80s, you had to wear whites, you had to conform to a certain look. And Agassi just rebelled against all of that. He rebelled against his father as well. So, there is evidence to say expose kids to early movement patterns. But we've got to be careful that we're not doing it to the detriment of their health or their psychology or their lifestyle or their physicality. So just get them moving, and just by moving, they will develop these movement patterns initially. And then it's our job then is to refine those movement patterns, is to correct them, which at the minute I don't think we really do. So, okay, stay with me on this one. This one, the theory behind fundamental movement skills is to do with something called neuroplasticity. And you don't need to know this for anything else. You don't need to know it for the assessment. But if you're going to be a coach or a teacher, you need to have the understanding of, well, why do we develop fundamental movement skills in kids? What's the reason for it? We talk about windows of opportunity, trainability. Well, where does it come from? And you've always got to ask yourself that. If someone tells you to do something, you should always question it and say, well, why? Why am I doing it? Why is this the best time? Why is this the best method? So neuroplasticity, it's to do with what how your wiring in your body works. And what I mean by wiring, you can see on the slide, the little yellow mass with the sort of like a piece of string coming off of it, that goes to your muscles. So it starts up in your brain, and then your body has all what we call these axons. And your axons run all the way through your body, and they join up to your muscles. So when you perform a movement, your brain is sending a message, or a neurotransmitter. It's sending a message along this neurotransmitter to your muscle, telling it how to work, how to fire, how to operate. Okay, so all of us have this makeup within our body. Now, there's evidence to suggest that when you're born, your body will try to develop these will try to develop or movement patterns. So the more movement patterns you do, the better the connection between the muscle and the brain becomes. So if you do something over and over again, the message, or the brain gets better at sending the message to the muscle of how to do the movement. If you don't do any movement, the brain is connected to the muscle, but after a period of time, it sort of loses the connection, or the connection doesn't become as good. So between 5 to 12 years of age, this is when the body is laying down or developing the neuromuscular system because of the effect of hormones on the body. And that is why it is the best time to learn movement, because that's when the neuromuscular system develops, the hormones are developing. So the more movements you can do, the more times you can do it, the connection between the brain and the muscle, or the wiring of the brain, becomes more efficient and more effective. We talk about something of pruning. I expect you've heard your mums and your dads talk about pruning, and they go out and cut the twigs off the trees because they then grow back better, and so on. Similar sort of thing with the neuromuscular system within the body. If you don't use, so let's say you've got a wire that is in your brain and it's attached to your bicep. The more you use that signal to send down to the bicep, the more efficient and effective the movement becomes. If you don't use that wire, which is connecting to the bicep, after a period of time, it tends to get maybe pruned away. So it will lose the connectivity. And that's what we're talking about. So between 5 and 12, your body is developing this neuromuscular system. And if you use it, it will grow and it will grow. So the connections between the brain and the muscle become even better. So that's why the optimum time to learn movement skills is between 5 and 12. And maybe you've heard with like long-term athlete development, we talk about critical periods of trainability, critical periods of opportunity, critical windows. There's not a great amount of evidence to suggest it works. And what I mean by works, that someone's actually taken kids at, like say, 7 to 9 years of age, because there's a window of opportunity for speed development, and they've done it and they've shown effects. The evidence behind it is that physiologically in the body and neuromuscular in the body, that's when those systems are developing. So I think it's important, because what if you have a late developer? What if you have an early developer? They could all be at slightly different stages of development, which will impact on when is the optimum time to teach them certain skills. Okay, so you can see that, there are significant times when we should be working with children. When they're pre-pubertal, pubertal, post-pubertal. And if we get it right, in terms of how we train and how we coach them, then hopefully they develop these effective movement patterns. And if they get effective movement patterns, then it impacts on significant periods of their lives.